So, freedom is a word that I grew up with in the United States. It's thrown around constantly in almost every conversation about why the United States of America was the United States of America. I fell for a hook, line, and sinker. Not because I was naive, but because I really had nothing to compare it to. Then I moved to England. So the United States presents itself as the land of choice. And on the surface level, I get it. The 47 different versions of salad dressing to choose from, 6 different kinds of coffee sizes to choose from. You can always upgrade or supersize or whatever. Infinite packages offered to you on every single level for every single product that you could possibly think of. 100% true. 100% American. But I want to talk about the choices that actually matter. Having the choice between 100 different kinds of cereal that are basically all going to send you into the diabetic shock isn't the same exact type of choices that you have that actually shape your life, where you live, where your kids go to school, whether you stay in a job that's making you miserable. Those are the types of choices that America doesn't offer, really. In my opinion, that's not really freedom. That's like a performance version of freedom inside a very, very, very tiny, compact room. When I moved here and the structural fear started to lift a bit, it was slow. I didn't even really notice it for a while, to be honest. But once it started to lift, I realized how so much of my decision making back home had been shaped by that little tiny living space. Real choice requires some kind of foundation, and it's difficult for you to make any kind of positive change if you aren't on that firm foundation or you don't even have one. I want to be careful here because I know safety is not a simple topic, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it is. It is complicated. There's a lot of levels to it. But I'll tell you about a very specific moment that might exemplify where I'm talking about a little bit better. I was walking somewhere, just a normal walk, nothing significant, average day. I passed a school. Children were playing in the playground, a completely normal, ordinary scene that no one would really blink at in any way. But I noticed that I felt nothing. Like it was normal for me too. I didn't have a background hum. I didn't have part of my brain doing that thing that it had been quietly doing before in my life in the US without me really consciously choosing to do it. I stood there for a second and thought, when did I last feel this? I couldn't answer it. It's not a debate point. It's just like what I felt as I was walking past this school. I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel as though the children were in any kind of danger. I didn't feel like I had to operate any differently because society operates differently as a whole when it comes to safety here. The policing operates completely differently. Not perfect, definitely not perfect, but the baseline relationship is a lot different because it's built on different assumptions. And when you feel that in your daily life, you don't feel as afraid to do things that might set somebody off or might cause someone to call the police. You can't really articulate it in all fairness unless you've experienced a contrast. And if you have experienced a contrast, like living in the US and understanding where I'm coming from, please let me know when it comes to safety. You're just constantly not looking over your shoulder, wondering if somebody's watching you, looking at you, or if someone's going to call the cops because they're uncomfortable, or if someone has, a semi-automatic weapon on them. I'm not going to oversimplify it and just say it's a guns versus non-guns like situation because it's not. Safety is an issue here in the UK as well. But the underlying fear is a lot quieter here. And it's just not built into everyday life as much as it is built in the United States. You just don't understand how loud that vigilance is that you walk around with all the time in the US until you don't have to hear it anymore. To be honest, this one took me a little bit longer to adjust to than I expected because it's not nearly as dramatic. It's more constant. In the United States, the price of something is not the price of something. There's like that's just the starting off point to negotiations, I guess. And you didn't even want to enter the negotiations. You just wanted to go pick up some milk. But, it is what it is. There's sales tax added at the till. Oh my God, completely British now, at the register. And at the register. And this sales tax is different in every single state, sometimes even by county within the state. Then you have to worry about tips that start at 15% when I was young, but now are requested at self checkout machines. I don't understand that, but okay. You have the medical bills that arrive weeks or months after your treatment for amounts that nobody quoted you in advance, that you have no negotiating power on, that you can get, your credit can get severely affected if you don't pay and all possibly go bankrupt as well, even though you already pay half your paycheck into insurance and you didn't even know who these doctors were or what they did and whether they were in or out of network. I remember I once got a bill from an anesthesiologist that I don't even remember ever meeting. I had no memory of. I mean, I always tell this story, but my daughter fell at school. She cut open her knee. She needed 12 stitches, and we had really good insurance. And this happened on a school trip, but we still had to pay a bill for $1,000 after her treatment for the stitches. I mean, that's just, it's just unacceptable in my opinion, but it's not really about the bill. It's about that we accepted that all these added fees, all these extra payments that we're making add up after a while, no matter how small they might be. And we are so ingrained as having it as part of our society that we don't even question it. We just file it away as like, that's the way things are. That's how things work. And, who are we to question it? But, and in all honesty, it is how things work for millions of people still in the United States. But here in England, but here in the UK, I noticed that the price is the price. You pay into the NHS insurance system, and then unless you have to pay a few bucks out of pocket for a prescription, you pay nothing else. The prescription is a flat fee even. I mean, you don't get like a bill in mail afterwards back. You don't get, a list of treatments and what your insurance company covers and what they don't, and trying to find a referral so that you don't get charged because it's a necessity to get checked out by this specialist. It's insane. I can't overstate how much of a mental load that quietly removes just the healthcare part. And then when you think about the fact that you walk into a store and a loaf of bread is a pound, and it's actually a pound when you check out, and you don't have to worry about having extra coins on your hand, especially now since they're getting rid of the penny. I mean, that's really, really weird. I don't know how that's going to work, but I guess we'll find out. It's just that these like everyday little costs really do add up. And then when you factor in the fact that things are just so much more expensive, it doesn't seem like it's much more expensive when you compare apples to apples, but the apples have so many other things added to it that it weighs that scale down a lot worse in America. And a lot of people don't understand it, I think. I live in a society now where it's just an everyday thing that the price is the price, and it removes a lot of stress and anxiety and pain that I didn't really fully understand. I don't think I still get baffled about, to be honest with you. This one genuinely shocked me. I'm not going to lie to you guys, because I did think I understood work and workers' rights. And I mean, I worked in a corporate system in the United States for almost 30 years and then for a few years here in the UK. I had a career. I knew, what I was supposed to do, and I thought I knew how it worked. Well, I knew how it worked in the United States, but I didn't know how it was supposed to work. Moving to England, you get a contract, an actual like contract in writing, no matter what your position is before you start. For most jobs, I should say, for most 9 to 5 type jobs, at least. This contract starts from day one, and it says that what your job is, what you're going to get paid, the hours that you're responsible to be there, what happens if things go wrong, and it's illegal. What time off that you get, including bank holidays and whatever the federal mandate time off is, which is another one. This is a legal requirement. Like, it's not a courtesy. It's not something that you have to negotiate when you get offered the job. It's not just some nice thing that some good employers or good companies out there choose to do. It's an actual requirement. You get that statutory paid holiday by law, and they're obligated to tell you what it is and make sure that you take it. The other thing is if you do it, the other thing that's really baffling to me that we say we have in the US, but we actually don't, is if something goes wrong, if you're treated unfairly, you're dismissed without cause, there's an employment tribunal system. So it's a formal accessible process for the employee. You don't have to just absorb it and take the company's word for it. You actually have a way to fight back if you feel as though you were wrongly terminated in any way. I've heard stories from people in my private life where they've gone months on tribunal, even when people were stealing from the company, because that person initiated the tribunal and they had to go through that entire process. And they ended up paying the person off just to get rid of them because it was cheaper to do that than to have this elongated process. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that might need a little bit of tweaking, but overall, the fact that employees do have a way to fight back. And when I talk to people about what it was like in America, they look at me as if it's something historical, like hundreds of years ago, like when during the Industrial Revolution, or even before the United States was fully formed as a country. But it wasn't. It was just a few years ago, less than 5. And unfortunately, it's still happening to a lot of people. And I think it's something that the people who work in the United States should definitely demand a little bit more of. This is the last one, and I think probably in some ways the biggest one. In England, you can walk across privately owned land. There are these ancient rights of way, they're called. They're footpaths, bridle ways, open access land. That these rights of way mean that you can move through the countryside, across fields, walk over hills, regardless of who owns the land that you're actually standing on and walking across. There's no like private land kind of borders like that. There is as far as legal purposes for ownership purposes, but not as far as the public is concerned. The land isn't locked away behind whoever can afford it. This is baffling to me. I find it almost like philosophically moving. And I'm aware that it's a lot. I am aware that that might be a little bit deep about, a footpath, but I stand by it. In all fairness, access isn't limited to just being able to walk across fields. I mean, when you think about, access to healthcare, we've talked about before many times, but I will continue to talk about, I think the NHS, even in its very imperfect form, is one of the, I think the NHS, even in one, when you talk about access to healthcare, I mean, we've talked about this before on this channel many times, and we will continue to, because I think the NHS, even in its very imperfect position as it is right now, is still a huge asset to the UK and all of its people and anyone who comes here. It's a specific freedom that it gives you, is to the freedom to just go and not worry about the financial burdens. And I know that's something that many people will never fully understand unless you've lived under a system like we have in the US, the private healthcare system. But to not wait until something is so serious enough to justify the cost, to be in a position where you can catch things early and survive a lot of things that people in the United States die from. It's just a form of access that changes how you actually live every day. Public transport as well, that fact that it exists out of major cities in very select areas of the country, that's lovely. Again, imperfect, yes, but present and available to most people. The thing is about the access here in the UK is that it's designed for everyone to be a part of the society. It doesn't single people out because they live in a certain place or they can't afford a car, or, you are a member of this society and this society has certain obligations to you as well. And it's not about charity and it's not about being lucky. It's about an obligation. It's about the social contract and both sides holding up their ends of the bargain. That's a framing thing that we don't have in the US. I want to come back to what I said at the start of this video because I want to reiterate that I don't think about the United States as being bad. There are freedoms in the United States. We have different freedom of speech laws, different freedom of movement laws, and a particular kind of cultural openness that is considered freedom, in my opinion. And I'm never going to erase any of that. But I think that freedom is just has more than one definition. It's more than one thing. And the version I grew up with was these are the freedoms and they're the best freedoms you could possibly have. The biggest, the best, the freest, America. But it was missing some chapters, in my opinion. But I didn't even figure that out until I moved to England. And you realize it just over time. It's not in like one specific speech or a dramatic moment or anything. It's just like you go about living your everyday life in the UK and you understand that the texture and quality of life just works very differently because of the tweaks on those freedoms. You don't get bills for your health care. You don't have to worry about getting shot because you might be walking on someone's land. I mean, those are the types of freedoms that we are taught are normal and acceptable in the United States. But They were all completely debunked the minute that I moved